The Alpha King had searched for his fated mate for years, but every prophecy ended the same way. You will find her when you no longer wear your crown. Determined to uncover the truth, he disguised himself as an ordinary servant and traveled to a distant pack. There, a quiet servant girl treated him with a kindness no one else did, completely unaware of who he really was. But the moment they met, something happened that neither of them expected. A secret tied to fate began to awaken, changing everything. Globe showing Europe, Africa before you watch. Tell us in the comments. What country are you watching from? We'd also love to hear your thoughts and predictions after watching. The Alpha King came as a stable hand and found his future queen scrubbing frost off another man's boots. Lorenzo Morty wore a torn wool coat, cracked boots 2 sizes too big, and the false name Enzo stitched crooked into the servant ledger. No crown. No black cloak lined in silver. No guards at his back. Just cold hands and a colder heart as he slipped through the servants' gate of the Valenti estate before the sun even thought about rising. He had ridden for 3 days under a hidden escort to see the girl the pack elders swore was his fated mate, expecting silk dresses, painted smiles, and another spoiled daughter who curtsied like she was born knowing how to take a throne. Instead, he heard crying. Soft, choked back, the kind of crying a person does when they've learned that crying loud gets you punished worse. Lorenzo stopped behind a stack of hay bales, breath fogging in the dark. Before we go further, drop where you're watching from in the comments. And if you believe some people are born to rule no matter what life throws at them, hit that like button. Now, back to Sophia. She was on her knees in the stable dirt, sleeves pushed up past her elbows, hands raw and red from the cold water in the bucket beside her. A pair of riding boots sat in front of her, caked in mud up to the ankle. She scrubbed them like her life depended on it because it did. Her chestnut hair had come loose from its tie, sticking to her damp cheeks. She wasn't dressed for this weather. A thin gray dress, patched twice at the hem, was all that stood between her skin and the January air. Standing over her was Giulia Valenti, wrapped in a fur-lined cloak that probably cost more than the whole stable. "You missed a spot," Giulia said, her voice light and pleasant like she was talking about the weather. "Do it again." Sophia didn't argue. She dipped her hands back into the icy water and kept scrubbing. Lorenzo felt something twist low in his stomach. He'd seen cruelty before. He'd seen war. But there was something about the quiet way this girl accepted it, like she'd stopped expecting anything different a long time ago, that made his jaw tighten until it ached. "Faster," Giulia said. "Bianca needs these for this afternoon. She has a very important guest arriving soon, and I won't have her looking anything less than perfect." At the mention of the guest, Lorenzo's stomach dropped. That guest was him, though none of them knew it yet. He was supposed to be watching from a distance, observing. That was the plan his advisors had drilled into him for weeks. Go in quiet, learn what kind of family this is, decide if the girl chosen for him is someone he could actually build a life with, or just another crown-hungry stranger wearing a pretty face. He hadn't expected any of this. A woman rounded the corner from the main house, younger, dressed in deep red velvet, her dark hair curled to perfection. Bianca. She glanced at Sophia in the dirt the same way someone glances at a stain on the floor, barely at all. "Mother, is it done yet? I want to wear the blue ones." "Almost, sweetheart," Giulia said, her whole face changing, softening, brightening, the way a mother looks at a daughter she actually loves. "Sophia is almost finished." Sophia, so that was her name. Lorenzo watched her shoulders curl in on themselves at the sound of it, like even hearing her own name from that woman's mouth cost her something. Bianca turned to go back inside, then paused, looking at Sophia with something between boredom and disgust. "You missed a spot on the left boot too. Honestly, it's like you don't even try." Sophia's hand stilled for just a second, just 1 second. Then she picked the boot back up and kept going. That 1 second told Lorenzo everything the elder's letters never could. He stepped further back into the shadow of the hay bales as Giulia and Bianca disappeared into the house, laughing about fabric colors and flower arrangements like the girl freezing on the ground in front of them was already forgotten. When they were gone, Lorenzo almost walked away. That was the plan. Stay hidden, report back, let the pack elders sort out the politics. But then Sophia set down the boots, wrapped her arms around herself, and let out a breath that shook all the way through her chest. Not a sob, just tired, bone-tired in a way no 18-year-old girl should ever be. And she looked up, right at the hay bales where he was hiding. "You can come out," she said, voice hoarse from the cold. "I know someone's there. You've been holding your breath for the last 2 minutes." Lorenzo froze. Then slowly he stepped into the gray morning light. Sophia looked him over. Mud-streaked coat, ill-fitting boots, hands stuffed in his pockets to hide how they weren't nearly as calloused as a real stable hand should be. "New here?" she asked. "Something like that," Lorenzo said. She studied him a moment longer, like she was deciding whether he was safe. Then she reached for the bucket, wincing as her raw fingers touched the handle. "Well, Enzo," she said, reading the name stitched crooked on his coat, "welcome to the Valenti estate. Try not to get too comfortable. Nobody stays long who doesn't know how to disappear." She said it like a joke, but Lorenzo heard the truth buried underneath it. And for the first time since he'd left his own kingdom, he wasn't thinking about crowns or bloodlines or the mate the elders had chosen for him. He was thinking about a girl on her knees in the snow, who had somehow managed to stay kind in a house built on cruelty. He didn't know it yet, not fully, not with words. But something in him had already decided. This was the one he'd come all this way to find. 3 days passed, and Lorenzo still hadn't left. He told himself it was for the mission, gather more information, watch the family longer. But if he was being honest with himself, and lately he wasn't very good at lying to himself anymore, he stayed because he couldn't stop watching Sophia. She worked from before sunrise until long after the last candle in the main house went dark, feeding horses, hauling water, mending fences with hands that never seemed to stop shaking from the cold, though she never once complained. He found himself falling into step beside her without meaning to, carrying the heavier buckets. Fixing the fence post she struggled to lift. She protested every time. "You don't have to do that," she said one morning, watching him hoist a bale of hay onto the loft without breaking a sweat. "I've been doing this since I was 12. I don't need saving." "Never said you did," Lorenzo answered. "Maybe I just don't like watching you do everything alone." She went quiet after that, like nobody had said something like that to her in a long time, maybe ever. It was on the 4th morning that he saw it, really saw it. Sophia was kneeling by the old apple tree near the edge of the property, the one the other servants called dead. Its branches were gray and brittle, bare even though spring was supposed to be coming soon. She pressed her palm flat against the bark, closed her eyes, and just breathed. Lorenzo almost called out to her, almost asked what she was doing, but something told him to stay quiet and watch. A single green bud pushed through the bark right beneath her hand. He blinked, sure his eyes were playing tricks on him, but it was still there when he looked again. Small, fragile, alive. Sophia opened her eyes, saw the bud, and smiled. Not a big smile. A tired, secret kind of smile, like she just won something small but important. Then she noticed him standing there. Her whole face changed. Fear, quick and sharp, flashed across it. "That's not, I didn't, the tree was already," she stammered, stepping back like she'd been caught stealing. "Sophia," Lorenzo kept his voice low and steady, the way he'd talk to a spooked animal. "It's all right. You can't tell anyone." Her hands were trembling now, and not from the cold. "Please. If Giulia finds out, if she knew I could still, she'll please, Enzo, promise me." I promise. He meant it more than he'd meant almost anything in his life. But Sophia, what was that? She sat down hard on the frozen ground, like her legs had given out. And for the first time since he'd arrived, she started to talk. She told him about her mother, who died when Sophia was 7, and how Giulia took her in only because the pack elders would have asked questions if she hadn't. She told him about the whispers she used to hear as a little girl, about a healing gift running through her mother's side of the family, a gift Giulia hated and feared in equal measure. She caught me healing a bird once, Sophia said, staring at her hands. I was maybe 9. I didn't even know what I was doing, I just wanted to help it. Giulia beat that bird's cage against the wall until it stopped moving right in front of me. Told me if she ever saw it again, she'd do worse to me than the bird. Lorenzo's chest went tight with something close to rage. So I stopped, Sophia continued. Buried it as deep as I could. Told myself I imagined it. But sometimes when nobody's looking, when I'm tired enough that I stop caring about the rules, it slips out anyway. Lorenzo thought about the land around the estate. The way the grass near the stables was a little greener than the grass everywhere else. The way flowers bloomed early along the path Sophia walked every morning to fetch water. He'd noticed it before and told himself it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. Sophia, he said carefully, have you ever noticed that Bianca seems to get, I don't know, healthier, more radiant, after she spends time around you? Sophia's eyes flickered with something like old, buried pain. Giulia always tells her to sit with me before big events, says it's good for Bianca's spirit, being near family, even if it's just me. She shook her head. I never thought much of it. I figured Bianca was just naturally blessed by the moon, like everyone says. But Lorenzo was thinking, hard. He'd read the old pack histories, the ones most people dismissed as bedtime stories now. Stories about bloodlines that carried the moon's power directly, and about how that power could be taken by someone close enough, hungry enough, patient enough to steal it a little at a time. He didn't say any of that to Sophia. Not yet. She'd been hurt enough without him handing her a theory that might not even be true. Instead, he reached over and gently took her raw, cold hands in his. You're not broken, he said. Whatever they told you, whatever they did to make you believe that, it's not true. What you have, that's not something to bury. That's something to protect. Sophia looked at him like she wanted to believe him, so badly it hurt. The moon festival is in 5 days, she whispered. Giulia's been planning it for months. Some important guest is coming. She wants everything perfect for Bianca. Lorenzo's stomach turned to ice, because he knew exactly who that guest was supposed to be. Sophia, he said slowly, what happens at the moon festival? The moon stone gets brought out to the plaza. It's supposed to bless whoever the moon has chosen. She pulled her hands back, wrapping her arms around herself again, that same tired, guarded posture from the day they met. Bianca's been practicing her presentation for weeks. Giulia says the stone always responds to her, lights up like a lantern. Lorenzo said nothing, but inside, everything was rearranging itself. Every piece of what he thought he understood about this family, about this mission, about the girl sitting in the frost beside him with a gift powerful enough to make dead trees bloom. 5 days. He had 5 days to figure out the truth, and he was starting to think the truth was going to break this family wide open. He looked at Sophia, really looked at her, the exhaustion carved into her face, the flicker of hope she was trying so hard not to feel, and he made a decision right then that he wasn't going to let her disappear the way this house had been trying to make her disappear her whole life. Whatever happens at that festival, he said quietly, I need you to trust me. Sophia studied him for a long moment, those tired eyes searching his face for a lie. She didn't find one. Okay, she said softly, I trust you. And Lorenzo Morti, alpha king of a kingdom that didn't even know where he was, felt the weight of that trust settle into his chest like something sacred. The night of the moon festival came in cold and clear, the kind of sky where every star looks close enough to touch. Sophia stood at the edge of the plaza in a plain gray dress, the same one she always wore, while lanterns glowed gold all around her and the whole pack gathered in their finest clothes. Nobody looked at her. Nobody ever did. She was just part of the scenery, the way a broom or a bucket is part of a room. She hadn't seen Enzo all day. Her chest ached with something she didn't want to name. 5 days of stolen conversations, of hands passing buckets, of a kindness she hadn't let herself feel in years. And now, on the one night that mattered most, he was nowhere. At the center of the plaza stood the moonstone, resting on a stone pedestal, dark and unremarkable until the moon hit it just right. The high priest, an old man with a long silver beard, stood beside it in ceremonial robes, waiting. Giulia swept through the crowd like she owned the night itself, her fingers curled around Bianca's arm, steering her toward the pedestal. Bianca wore deep blue silk, her hair pinned with pearls, her face glowing with the kind of confidence that only comes from being told your whole life that you're special. "Tonight," the high priest called out, his voice carrying over the crowd, "the moon reveals its chosen. Tonight our king finds his queen." Sophia's stomach turned. She still didn't know who the king actually was. Nobody had told her his name, only that he was coming, only that Bianca had been groomed for this moment since she could walk. A hush fell as a man stepped forward from the crowd near the pedestal. Dressed in deep black robes lined with silver thread, she'd never seen him wear before. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. It was Enzo. No, it was Enzo. Not really. The rough coat was gone. The mud-caked boots were gone. Standing there under the moonlight was someone else entirely, someone with the bearing of a man who had commanded armies, who had never once in his life scrubbed a boot or hauled a bucket of water. "Lorenzo Morti," the high priest announced, "Alpha King, has come to receive his fated mate." The crowd gasped and bowed. Sophia stood frozen, her mind screaming at her to run, to hide, to disappear the way she'd trained herself to disappear her whole life. He'd lied to her. He'd let her trust him, let her tell him things she'd never told another living soul, and the whole time he was. He turned his head, found her eyes across the crowd. And in that one look, she understood. He hadn't lied about who he was to hurt her. He'd hidden it to protect the truth long enough to find it. "Bianca Valenti," Giulia said, pushing her daughter forward, "step forward and receive the moon's blessing." Bianca approached the pedestal, chin high, and reached for the stone. The moment her fingers touched it, the moonstone flared to life, bright silver light spilling across the plaza, and the crowd erupted into gasps and cheers. Giulia's face split into a triumphant smile. Then the light started to flicker, sputter, like a candle catching a draft. The stone went black. Pitch black, darker than the night sky itself, and a low murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd. Bianca stumbled back, staring at her hand like it had betrayed her. "That's not possible," Giulia hissed, stepping forward. "The stone has always answered her, always." The high priest's face had gone pale. "The stone does not lie, it has rejected her." Chaos rippled outward, whispers turning to shouts, and in the middle of it the moonstone lifted off its pedestal. It hung in the air, trembling, black as a starless sky, and then it began to drift. Straight toward Sophia. "No," Giulia said, her voice cracking with something raw and desperate. "No, get back, get away from it, someone stop her." But nobody moved to stop the stone. It floated closer and closer until it hovered just above Sophia's outstretched, trembling hand, and the moment it touched her skin, it exploded into light so bright the whole plaza turned white. Sophia gasped as warmth flooded through her, down her arms, through her chest, into every scar she carried, the ones on her hands from years of frozen water, the ones on her heart from years of being told she didn't matter. She felt something ancient wake up inside her, something that had been sleeping, chained, waiting. Guards moved toward her, Giulia's voice shrieking orders over the noise, but before a single hand could reach her, Lorenzo was there. He tore the ceremonial robe from his shoulders, revealing armor underneath, dark and battle-worn, engraved with a seal that glowed faintly gold, the mark of the first king. "Enough," he roared, and the sound of it rolled across the plaza like thunder, freezing every single person in place. Guards stopped mid-step. Giulia's mouth hung open around a word she never finished. "This woman," Lorenzo said, standing beside Sophia now, his hand hovering protectively near her back, "has been lied to, stolen from, and buried alive under your family's greed for years. The land didn't bloom because of Bianca's blessing. It bloomed because Sophia's gift was being drained and hidden every single day so that a false heir could wear a crown that was never hers to wear." "That's insane," Giulia spat, though her voice shook. "She's a servant, a nobody." "She's the true Luna," Lorenzo said, and the light around Sophia pulsed brighter, like the moon itself was agreeing with him. "The stone doesn't choose queens, Giulia. It remembers bloodlines, and it just remembered hers." Sophia looked down at her own hands, glowing faintly silver now, the years of raw, cracked skin smoothing over right before her eyes. She let out a breath that turned into a sob, not from pain, but from something she hadn't let herself feel in so long she'd forgotten the name for it. Relief. The crowd, every servant who had looked away, every pack member who had eaten at Giulia's table while Sophia starved in the cold, dropped to their knees. Not for Bianca, not for Giulia. For her. Bianca stood frozen, the glow that had always surrounded her fading like mist under morning sun, until she looked, for the first time Sophia could remember, ordinary. Just a girl. Just a scared girl realizing the ground beneath her had been built on someone else's stolen breath. Giulia's legs gave out, and she sank into the dirt, the same dirt she'd once forced Sophia to kneel in. Lorenzo knelt in front of Sophia, taking her healed hands in his, right there in front of the entire pack. "I came here wearing another man's name," he said, "looking for a stranger the elders picked for me. I didn't expect to find someone who taught me what it means to be kind, even after the world gave her every reason not to be." Sophia's eyes filled with tears, her voice barely above a whisper. "You knew who you were this whole time, and you still carried my water buckets." "I'd carry them for the rest of my life," Lorenzo said, "if it meant walking beside you." The moonstone settled gently back onto its pedestal, glowing warm and silver now, steady as a heartbeat, as if it had finally found its way home. And under a sky full of stars, in a plaza that had once been the site of her deepest shame, Sophia Valenti, the girl the world had tried so hard to erase, rose to her feet as the true Luna of a kingdom that would never make her kneel again.